Hey, dogs barking are going to be the least of our fucking problems in this episode.
That's true.
Which, you know what? That sounds like the intro to this episode. Welcome to Lost to the Nails, episode 10. We don't have a title for this because this is going to be a very special episode. Our working title is Nova equals no Rona. No Nova equals Rona. Man, Eric, thanks for bailing me out here today.
My pleasure.
um, you'll hear some things different about this episode. I probably sound a little different. I don't have my microphone because I don't have my USB adapter for my Mac, because it's at my school on the desk. Because I didn't know that the day that I went home that I was going to go home and test positive for COVID along with my entire goddamn family the next day. So on this show,
Ladies
not
and gentlemen, things have taken a turn.
so I'm on AirPod Pros. Um, voice is probably my voice is a little off from the whole COVID thing. I've got a really light case as far as like if you have to have a symptomatic case, I'm doing pretty well with it. But I do just have to point out, I feel like I feel like this could be a teaching moment for everyone. The epidemiologist on the show flies across the country, goes to Nova, plays games with multiple people in multiple systems, and does not catch COVID. The other host stays home but has a 4 and a 7-year-old. They just go to school and I catch COVID. So the rule here is birth control, y'all. It's good for you.
Yeah, the dual income, no kids lifestyle is paying off.
I've never missed dinkhood as hard as I do now, but you know what? My kids are cool. But the term did come up at my house that when the first kid tested positive, she came up while I was making dinner. And I turned around and she said, Daddy. And I turned around and she started whistling in my face. And I had to tell her that your mouth is no longer a mouth. It is now a COVID hole. And you can't point your COVID hole at people. Ugh.
Never muzzle sweet people with your COVID hole.
Yeah. Anyways, today, this is, we have stuff we wanted to talk about. We are punting on the terrain episode actually because when you pitched that, it was like, hey, let's kind of do an easy one. Let's do a terrain episode. And I was like, yeah, okay, man, you sent me straight down the rabbit hole. I mean, I had a big terrain commission to do, but man, that is a much deeper topic than I thought it would be. And I'm not like complaining about a workload thing. Like I am genuinely excited for that episode and I don't want to just poop through a goose that one. So we're going another month on that one.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The terrain episode deserves everyone's sort of full attention and
Yeah,
and thoughts.
absolutely. Absolutely. So today, what we're going to do, we'll go over a little bit of news stuff, kind of what we've been up to. We have to talk about the Leagues of Baton because went on pre-order yesterday. We're recording this on Sunday, and I'm pretty excited. I've been really interested to look at community reaction to it because, well, we'll get into that. We'll get into kind of our thoughts on it so far and where it's at. And then after that, we're going to talk about your experiences going to Nova and the different events. And I'm curious to see how I've intentionally not texted or asked you how your Battlefleet Gothic fleet went because I wanted to kind of save it for doing it on air. And then in the second half, we're going to go over. There was a phrase you used talking about the Horus Heresy a couple of years ago, and you said that it's a game that you can hold in your head, and that finally clicked and became a thing for me too. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. There is a new segment that, if you're an old Splinter Mind listener, will sound like a very obvious ripoff of, and then shameless. And then we'll have Eric's going to hold my hand and reinforce my clarity and help me design a 1K Zone Mortalis list for me to kind of paint towards. So, editing so many cops out of this episode. Okay. So, aside from Nova, any any big stuff you've been up to since a while? I mean, it's been a while since we've recorded.
It has been a while since we've recorded. The fact of the matter is, in terms of things, it has been prepping for Nova. So
Hmm.
painting Imperial Fists to finish that out.
Yeah.
Painting my Battlefleet Heresy fleet to finish that out. Not finishing the Adeptus Titanicus stuff I needed to paint. We'll talk about that
Ooh.
during the How Was Nova
Yeah.
episode
Yeah.
segment. So yeah, it's just been a lot of like the classic prep for that, slowly sort of working way through the list. Um, I'm happy with everything that did get painted, which is why I just didn't paint the Titanicus stuff, as it was like 2 days until I left, and I was like, no, you can't half-ass Titans. That's not allowed.
No.
Um,
No.
and so yeah, that's really what I've been up to. How about you?
So I started. I'm running the. Basically, we're trying to get people to paint up 1,000 points of heresy in 4 months. So we're doing 250 points a month. The first month for, and this is all run over on the Herrick Games Discord server. The first month I did 200. It had to be roughly 250 points. I was like, look, 200 to 250 ish. Like we want to reach 1,000 by the end, but I didn't want to. We kind of sprung it on them a little bit late in the month in August, but it was you had to do a line unit and an HQ. Just like, look, this is the basic core for. Initially, I wanted to have people paint a Zone Mortalis list, but then I was like, everybody's in a different spot, and the point is just to get people to paint their stuff. So I was like, let's just get the beginners, like, hey, just do a line unit and then that way, I'm hoping we get some games locally too. But so for that, I ended up failing by one character. I didn't get my Legion Champion done in time, but I just did a Legion Champion and 10 basic bolter boys with chain bayonets, and there were a lot of great ones that were done. The second month that we're doing, if anybody wants to jump in, just contact us. We'll get you into the Discord server there. Or I think there's a link on Herrick Games site for the Discord server too, where you can get in. But message either Sky at Herrick Games or me, and we'll get you in there. But this month I just opened it up and I'm like, look, just at least 250 points of something. And so for that, I was like, I really want to paint a heavy flamer, heavy support squad, and I really want to paint Contemptor Dreadnought. And that's over 250 points, and that's fine. It's only 6 models. So I've been doing that. A lot of terrain painting, finishing up a terrain commission, and honestly, just kind of, I've really just been going through, kind of just combing through the heresy stuff and going through bits and things. And I had my hoarder instincts validated yesterday when I went to put 10 cataphracti together, and I was like, I swear that I bought a set of the cataphracti shoulder pads for World Eaters before they left, before they went out of print. And I was like digging through, and I was like, okay, good, I got a set. Man, I wish I'd gotten two. And I dug a little harder, and I was like, yeah, no, there's 20 full pads in here. I'm good to go.
Yeah, I will say Heresy 2.0 has absolutely validated the strategic resin reserve impulse in a way that is not healthy, and I don't necessarily appreciate from GW. But there has been both that and like random people in my group have been like, "Hey man, I'm looking for a left-handed power fist," and it's like, "I got you." Like let us open the archives and find little bits of things. Like I've got weird emergency backup of things. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got that. That's cool. And that was also nice while sort of frantically assembling things for Nova to be like, oh yeah, I absolutely have the bits to put that squad together. I can figure that out. Like, fetch me my Mark III shoulder pads. And so that's worked very well, which is like unfortunate for many of my purchasing habits, but a nice sort of hobby feeling. Like, yeah, I told you it'd be back.
The only downside is I did when they went up. They were listed as being limited initially, and then it changed. The I've been wanting to get into aeronautica. I've been holding off on that. When I found out there was going to be a heresy rulebook for it, I was like, that's it. That's how I get in. Picked that up, and the reference cards, which I realize now really aren't all that important to have, but I have all of them, so great. Um, I ordered the starter box for that. The God, what is it? The Angels of Wrath or whatever the thing is, the Eldar and
Yeah, that's the
sci-fi
Eldar
one.
Marine one.
Yeah, that's a perfect one to do. And that one, and the crazy thing is, I'm probably going to get that one, my copy of Into the Dark, and the Leagues of Votann Army box all at the same time because I have fucking COVID. So I'm going to come home with just a glut of stuff. And yeah, this is a really, really expensive month that I made worse by buying a couple of guitars on Labor Day too. One of which will probably be coming while we're recording today. So yeah,
So
I had
rip
some
to Brian Harvey's
splurge.
savings account.
Yeah, yeah, it's gone. It's it's gone. None of them made it. I'm sorry. We had to console the survivors, and there are none. So that's us. That's what we're doing. That's a cough number, I think 7 now I've recorded here that I'm going to have to edit out. But I wanted, well, let's get the, no, we'll do the world eaters last. So Leagues of Votann, we, reviews have been put out there. People have made videos endlessly about them. How much have they shown up on your radar as far as your thoughts on them?
So they have been slowly creeping up on me. When they first got previewed, I was like, not my aesthetic. They don't hit a nostalgia sort of note for me that was during the time in my hobby career when I wasn't in 40K. So like, oh cool, squats are back is like, eh. Um, but they've been slowly creeping up on me. The vehicles have done a good job. Like they showed the first sort of transport, the little transport, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll pick one of those up for terrain. This is the thing I tell myself I'll do is I'll buy one for terrain. It'll be okay. It's just a Zone Mortalis army. Um, and so I told myself that I was like, okay, that'll be cool. And then the Nova preview event happened, and they showed that land bunker thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Um,
The
and
definitely not a
yes,
segment of a land train.
and like, yes, looks like both a children's toy and the buggy from Armageddon, and I'm here for both of them. And then also the mysterious space wizard
Oh God,
and
so good.
mysterious space wizard is possibly one of the best models GW has ever made. I love him.
How
I
so?
am
I love it.
like, I don't know. It's just like there are things where you see a model and you go, I know exactly what that does.
Okay.
And that's it. Is you're like, dwarf space wizard. You don't even have to tell me the rules. That's what he does. I like that. Like, I like that his hero rock is he's floating on it because like that's dope. Um, it's a one of the big departures. I've been sort of annoyed by the like the new Leagues of Votann have to be dwarves in space.
Yeah.
And so I like that is a major departure from, oh, they're just dwarves with bolt guns. Is like, no, they've got wizards. Like they have psychers, they have whatever their approach is in the lore to how they handle psychers. This is sort of a departure and a different note from the rest of the army in a way I think was really cool. Um, and then immediately following that, as my brain thrashed around trying to find a justification to buy a bunch of stuff, um, was like, my wife likes dwarves. I would like my wife to play 40K with me.
Oh
What if I
God.
built a little
Yes.
25 power level patrol of space dwarves for her? That's totally a justification, right? That's like a good use of my time and money. So they've been creeping up. I didn't order the box set. Um, Partially because I'm still sort of hemming and hawing on it, and like my closet of potential is overfloweth at the moment. But also just like by the time I decided like maybe I will, it was sold out online, and I was like, okay, cool, thanks, like GW for doing me a solid. But yeah, they're definitely more on my radar than I expected them to be. when they started doing this, I was like, great, I don't have to worry about this. GW's not coming for my money. And then they got me dialed in per huge.
So the Dwarf Space Wizard, when they announced that one, I was like, so let me back up. When it comes to all this stuff, there was a thread where somebody in kind of in our local group of guys, um, so it has like the guys I used to I game with in Santa Cruz, some of the guys in Morgan Hill, like you know Carl Justin, some other guys like that we talked about before. Um, Somebody posted a thing, and it was like the picture of the one where somebody put them in the colors of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Who's going for this?" And a couple of us, like Doug and I, were both like, "Shut the fuck up and take my money. I'm doing all of this." And I was sitting there writing, and one of the things I was trying to explain in it, and I was like, "Look, when I was a kid, when I got into 40K, I used to live in this town. If you look at California and you look at where Modesto is, I used to live north of there in this like dairy town. I used to have to get onto my mountain bike during the summer when it's like 105 degrees and ride. I know this sounds like uphill in the snow both ways, but I'm just trying to set like how much this meant to me. The only gaming store was this little place called Off the Wall. And this place was so low volume and run on such a shoestring budget that when you went in there during the summer, they had the lights off to save money on their energy bill. It was that rough. And when you would go to get anything back in the day, you used to have to order a sleeve of blisters. And so a sleeve would be like six, or half sleeve would be six, a full sleeve would be 12. So when the game first came out, I immediately, I saw the little floating Eldar with little wing things, and I was like, I'm playing those guys. But as it started kind of going on, like we started going into like second edition, which I want to say was like 94, 95, maybe somewhere in there. I started looking at the squats, and I had a couple of models that I'd gotten and painted. I bought a couple of Hearthguard, because that was, you're young, you buy like a blister of this and paint it, and then you go, wait, army list, what? And I always wanted squats, but they never had them in stock. And whenever I wanted to get anything, they would say, well, we can't afford to just order a whole sleeve because nobody else is going to buy them. So you're going to need to order like a half sleeve of these things. And you didn't know which specific versions of poses were going to come in and stuff. So it was always just too much of a thing. And I used to, like I said, I used to ride my mountain bike like 12, 15 miles to the store. And so when the second edition book came out, or box set came out, they had like that early army list, and they had all these new units like Cyber Slayers and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so fucking great. Why would I go and buy all these Rogue Trader ones if they're going to come out with all these new awesome ones? I'm just going to wait for that. And then it never happened. So by the time I really wanted to get into it, they never happened. So in a way, I'm that kid who was riding his bike in 105-degree weather because he didn't know any better to go to this store hoping they had squats on the shelf, that never got to buy them. And now I get to buy them, and they tick off just enough nostalgia. Like there are like hints and notes of those things. So you do have the like ancient, the living ancestor type thing with the wizard, but it's a
Yeah,
new enough thing too that awesome,
it's
and
not purely for 12-year-old Brian, but it's not for 12-year-old Brian.
yeah, 12-year-old Brian and 47-year-old Brian are jumping up and down and holding hands, skipping off to the store right now. So and the Space Dwarf Wizard thing, when it first came out, it was so perfect because it's so ridiculous and so amazing. And there were so many comments I saw where people were just like triggered by it for no reason. And that was when I was
Mm-hmm.
like, when that comes out, I'm going to take it in every list for a while, just because
Just
if
because why not?
if you don't get that, I probably shouldn't be playing a game with you. So that's it's kind of a litmus test for me a little bit.
Yeah, I will say, sort of in the room when that reveal happened, um, that was the most energy that room had.
Wow, interesting.
Is that, like, I think because you have a mix of people, and they all want, okay, but what's here from my game system,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like my army, and then like they showed that and everyone was like, oh my God, that's real cool. Oh, so you could just see the whole room be like, also like that is the thing that nobody was expecting. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
we'll talk about them, but like people knew we were gonna see the World Eaters because like we've already seen some of the
yeah,
World Eaters because of leaks and things like that. So like, okay, we know that's coming, and
yeah,
like we knew like Zavotan stuff was coming. We saw a couple things. We saw the big truck,
yeah.
and so we're like, all right, we're ready to go. And then that showed up, and we're like, ooh, hello.
Hi. Hey there.
And what do you do?
Yeah,
And so I think that's just been really cool.
yeah,
So in terms of sort of extended League of Votan talk, we now also have some notion of sort of what they are and what they do.
yeah,
So one of the things that Carl Tuttle had always talked about with not wanting the squats to come back is, so what do they do? What
yeah,
are they? What is the case for them needing to exist as a faction?
yeah.
Um, do you think with what you've seen so far that they actually sort of check that box as something that either for the fluff or for the game or for both, where you're like, yeah, like you guys exist in a niche that needed to be filled?
In my completely 100% biased opinion, I guess 47-year-old Brian has to kick, or 40, I'm not 47, 46. Wow, this is not good. 46-year-old Brian has to kick 16-year-old Brian or 12-year-old Brian off to the side here for a second. As far as the background, I don't, I'm a little weird this way where I really don't need that much of a background thing to justify it, if that makes sense. Um, I do think that their background story is interesting enough, and it's to me it provides an interesting. Man, I'm trying to figure out how to frame this. As opposed to Tau, where it's like we're going to introduce this thing that evolved completely separately from everybody else, and it's really weird and not obviously not made to market to a Japanese market for sales in any sort of way. You know what I mean? Like to try to get the Gundam anime crowd in here or anything like that. What I like about them is they do kind of give us a what if look at Imperial technology developing on its own and going off in a different direction. So I like them because they fit in this interesting space between, I think on the website, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're actually listed as a Xenos faction, because they aren't a true Imperial faction.
Imperial faction. Yep.
But what I like is that I like having this as I always like these sort of like third parties that where they can sort of be added in, where they're not completely antagonistic to the Imperium, but they're also not staunch allies. I like these sort of like third party characters that can be brought in, if that makes any sense. And I think I really love exploring that angle of, if you look at the Imperium and the history with AI and the Iron Men and that sort of thing, like, well, what if that wasn't a problem and it did get to go somewhere, and we get to explore that and see it on the table, and there are enough familiar notes as far as design cues and things like that it doesn't look completely out of place. It isn't like this is Tau and we have to like make a brand new thing for them. I feel like they are slotted in a way that they do that. Now, how they're going to play on the tabletop, I'm curious to see how, if they're filling a hole or not. And the game is so damn big that I don't know that there are that many holes. They kind of have to make one for themselves.
Yeah. So that's sort of the feeling I have on them. I really like sort of visually and narratively, like you said, that there's this what if that like this is a departure from humanity in the distant past.
Yeah,
And we're starting to see like there's a lot of design cues. It's a different aesthetic, but like bolters still look like bolters.
yeah,
But also like that plasma gun looks an awful lot like a Tau plasma gun.
yeah,
And so there's
yeah,
a bit of that there that I like. I like you said, that they're not like irrationally imposed to the Imperium in a way that, like, if you decided to toss some squats into your army and sort of had them as like, yeah, they're
Yeah.
tagging along, you'd be like, well, what's the narrative for that? Like,
Yeah.
there's a clear narrative for that. There's
Hmm.
also a clear narrative for we've decided to blow you off this planet.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's nice. I think they've done a good job with that. I have not read the leaked codex out of sort of
Yeah.
not wanting to
Yeah.
reward that.
Yeah.
But like the previews they've had have been, they're slow, they're
Yeah.
durable, and they hit hard.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's a niche because I think, like you said, like the game is big enough at this point
Yeah.
that like you can find an army of some sort that does almost anything in the game.
Yeah.
Um, I will be curious to see how they actually play on the field.
Yeah.
But I think I'm excited for them. I think they have done a good job making them their own thing. One of the things I did really like is that they have sort of, I think, stepped away from they have to be the squats as everyone sort of remembers the squats as, because I think the squats have a lot of um, what I call in other things received lore or received wisdom,
Big
where
time.
like
Big time.
what happened to the squats is, well, when I was 12 I asked that question and the guy at the store had read a phonetic magazine,
Yeah.
and so like over the course of Nova I heard three different explanations for what happened to the squats,
Yeah.
and everyone was of the opinion that that absolutely had to be represented in the new codex. And it
No.
was like, those are mutually exclusive, y'all.
Yeah.
Like, no, just let them do their own thing.
Yeah.
And let, what happened to the old squats disappear into the hallowed lore of yore. Um, and that's one thing that I do like is when Games Workshop is like, look, this game has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
We made some silly cocaine fueled choices in the late 80s, early 90s. We've decided to revisit that with the
Yeah.
benefit of time and experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they're doing a real good job with them. I'm excited to see them on the table. We will see if I end up starting some. I will tell myself it'll be like a little patrol list. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, I'm excited for them. I will probably paint them gray because I have all these lovely historicals grays that I need
Yeah.
to actually use for something,
Yeah. Yeah.
NATO Dark Ghost Gray or something.
But
But yeah, and then the other real question, which is again mostly playing to the Brian Harvey crowd, how about them world eaters?
oh my god. Oh my god. So yeah, I'm I'm so fucked. I'm glad that there's a codex in between these two. So they announced the Imperial Guard are gonna show up in between the two, and yeah, no, that kit's great. I love the single barrett arm because I think you do have to do a bicep flex to activate any sort of a chain weapon, and people have to see that bicep flex before you do it to make it really work. You go into God mode with your chain axe, and yeah, it's I I don't yeah. See, I'm just kind of gushing and speechless about it. So it's looking at the kit. There were and I hate to start off describing anything as people were complaining about it, but there were some things showing some of the poses being similar to other Space Marine models, and I'm like, there's only so many ways to pose the human body running towards you while it's holding a pistol and an object that it can swing at you that is of a certain length. But when you get into all the details that are on there, I mean, even like the weird on the bare arms having like the weird, almost like cataphracti shaped, gladiator shoulder pad. There were a lot of cues taken back from the Forge World kit, so it gave me permission with my 30K World Eaters to take the Forge World upgrade kits for 40K that I'd hoarded, to take some of the bunny, clip off, trim off some of the bunny ears and file off corn runes and things like that. Like I did that for my heavy flamer squad, so then I can have the sort of like legit Sarum pattern helmet and things like that, because you're going to have a refresh in that kit, and it's going to be with all Games Workshop kits now, they come with tons of extra bits, and I just couldn't be happier, and I'm really hoping that they get the full. I really hope they get the full range of the full Thousand Suns or Death Guard treatment. As far as getting, I want some sort of a abhuman type troop choice. So if it's like Beastmen would be perfect for them, and I want Red Butchers. Some sort of a plastic kit. But you know what? Even if I just get Angron in this kit, I'm I'm fine.
We're doing okay. Yeah, I
No,
really,
no matter what, I'm happy. Honestly, like if we just get what we saw, just
which is
I'm
awesome.
fine. I'm fine. Honestly.
I really liked the design with these, partially because they were a little restrained.
Yeah.
You can put Gribbly bits all over Chaos Marines, and there are definitely Chaos Marine kits that are coated in Gribbly bits. I
Yeah.
like that this one, they feel like gladiators.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of ornamentation. There's some, but not a lot.
Yeah.
There's some clean lines. As you said, they sort of they map back in a way where, like, if someone told me, because there's a passage in Saturnine where Janita Kroll is describing what's happened to the world leaders, and they've all gotten swollen with warp power and are
Yeah.
broken. If you fielded a unit of these as like an elite like veteran unit or something in Heresy Army, I'd be like, yeah,
Yeah.
like, okay, so we're at the siege, and these are the guys who are real far gone.
Yeah.
And like that would look great. I think the thing about the posing is true. There's only so many ways to do that in a way that looks good.
Yeah.
We've all seen the super awkwardly posed multi-pose models that people are trying to do for variety.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I really like this kit. I am glad I don't care about chaos because I don't need more things to spend my money on.
Yeah.
But like these are one of those classic, like, I am looking forward to seeing these across the table from me
Yeah.
and being like, these are beautiful and they do what? And so I'm here for this kit, and I'm glad that as a longtime Sisters and Eldar player, I embrace all old classic kits that are getting redos in ways that make them look good and viable and bring them to modern plastic.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm stoked. I'm stoked. And I'm also staring at the door over there going, there's going to be so much editing between coughs, and now I have yeah,
You have
locked
a
up the door.
visitor?
Yeah. Well, no, she left. She left. It, my 4-year-old's very adorable, but man, yeah, she just poked her head in, and I gave the very stern point, and the evil monkey from Family Guy just pointing, and she went the other way. So it's good.
Fair enough.
Well, just for the sake of editing, I'm going to go ahead and have us. We're going to go ahead and take a break here, and
Sounds good.
real talk. I'm going to clear my throat and get some more water, and then we're going to dive into Mr. Lofgren goes to Nova.
That sounds good.
So, Eric, you did a gigantic. What is it? A 7,000 word post?
Rundown. Yes, it is nearly 7,000 words of me talking about the Nova Open. So if you want a super deep dive into the nuances with pictures and such of the event, that's really where to find it. Somewhere there's a graph up there of the CO2 concentration of the room. It's a whole thing.
Jesus.
Yeah, because I was curious and an epidemiologist. But yeah, so I went to Nova. Um, it was great.
Sorry. I'm like, well, if people read that and then try to listen to this, they're going to be let down, because this is going to be like an old school, like Larry King interviewing the author. Like, you went to Nova. Your thoughts. Sorry, go ahead.
If I would make you do that voice, except I think it will kill you at this point.
It will kill me
So
for
yeah,
the rest of the
I went to
day.
Nova. I went to Nova. It was great. Um, they did indeed. They had a vaccine requirement and a masking requirement. Both of those were fairly rigorously enforced. You needed to show your vaccine card to check in. Like before registration, you had to show your vaccine card.
Really
I
interesting.
briefly gave the heroic soul who was doing that a panic attack because he asked for something, and I heard I need your dice card, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And he looked at me with just this like 4-inch dinner plate eyes. Oh my god!
Like,
And then
oh,
I
it's what it
and then I was
fucking
like,
means.
"What are you talking about?" He's like, "Your vaccine card. Do you have one?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's in my pocket." Um, so that was like, okay, you guys are trying. Masking similarly was pretty rigorously enforced. People took masks off for drinking and eating and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
there was definitely attempts were made to not give a bunch of people COVID at this event, which was great.
Wow.
Um, I played in 3 different events. Centurion, which was essentially 1,500. It was intended to be 1,500 points of a very infantry heavy list. Basically, you couldn't bring big dreadnoughts, so Leviathans.
Yeah.
Uh, Other dreadnoughts were limited to 0-1, so you couldn't really bring like Fury of the Ancients list or something like that. There
Yeah.
were no vehicles allowed. And then a lot of other choices, so bikes, jet bikes, land speeders, stuff like that, were all sort of 0-1 choices. So the idea is you
Hmm.
are mostly supposed to be playing your dudes.
Yeah.
That turned into I played one event, I played one game of 1,500 points, and then they said we're gonna make you all make friends. So here's your partner. You're now playing 1,000 point per person doubles,
Hmm.
which was fine. I paired up with a Dark Angels player who was really fun. I confess, a little bit disappointed, um, because he had none of the Dark Angels bullshit. Like
You're like, you had one job.
he had he had a tactical squad, he had a plasma support squad, a praetor, and a block of 10 normal cataphractii terminators. And I'm like, where are the tyrannic great blades? Where
Yeah.
is the like that is a flamer that is also a plasma gun? Like bring out the toys.
Yeah. You're
He
the
took
first
the
Legion, goddammit.
yeah, I think it's the Iron Wing. It's the rule that
Okay.
makes them better at vulture shooting. And I'm like,
Okay.
this is just like, no, we have Imperial Fists at home. Like,
Yeah.
I need the bullshit. And he didn't bring it. But he was a great guy. It was a lot of fun. Our
Yeah.
tactic for all those games were just Terminator Wall,
Sure.
which worked real well. Um, the event I think that you're sort of most interested in, and I had the most fun with, and this is really what made me go like, oh yeah, I want to go to Nova. Is they had a Zone
Yeah.
Mortalis event.
Yeah.
That was 3 games of Zone Mortalis. Um, the boards were gorgeous. Um, Ranging from there was a couple boards that were sort of less great, but still definitely like an attempt was made.
Yeah.
To some genuinely gorgeous. I think this cost more than the Forge World tiles. Like double decker boards with ladders and things like that.
Oh,
So
wow.
phenomenal board builds, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, I took what I'd consider an okay ZM list. It's been running wild in my local scene, but that's not actually indicative of much.
Right.
Where I took a Legion champion, um, a unit of Tartarus Terminators with Storm Shields and a variety of weapons, 2 units of Tactical Marines with bayonets, and a unit of Seekers. The Seekers are not good in Zone Mortalis. Don't take them. They tended to be my somebody has to run on the objective or like die well to buy me time unit. They're
Yeah.
great in other things. They're phenomenal in 40k and 30k, but in Zone Mortalis, you need a couple turns of good bolter shooting, picking out people to really get them into their own. And in Zone Mortalis, the Terminators come around the corner, you frantically shoot at them for a turn, and then you're dead. Um, but it was great. So the sort of range of lists ranged anywhere from that, sort of like, yeah, this is sort of a cool little thematic force, etc., to a couple genuinely pretty rough lists.
Yeah.
There was one with featuring Karn, some Red Butchers, some other Terminators, and 2 units of either despoilers or tactical Marines with chain bayonets. It doesn't really matter when they're world eaters. There's still like a million attacks.
Yeah.
Running the I get a million of attacks, but in exchange I have to charge, and that's what I wanted to do anyway.
Mm.
Right of war. Those were rough. I just got destroyed that game. And I'm at
Yeah.
peace with that. Um, the other really rough list is there was one with Sigismund, 5 Templar Brethren, and 2 units of 5 Imperial Fist Terminators, and I was like, cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool. I didn't play that. Thankfully, they did have enough players that they could manage mostly loyalist on trader games.
Yeah.
But overall, the experience was great. I played three really fun opponents. Even the guy who brought the somewhat harder World Eaters list.
Yeah.
That was as much me being like, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you the experience you were clearly looking for,
Yeah.
as it was like he was a great opponent, but like, yeah, my Seeker squad can't stop Karn and a bunch of Cataphracti Terminators with Lightning Claws. Film at
Yeah.
11.
Right.
We couldn't even do that if we had full blown Overwatch. This is just not a thing that happens.
Yeah.
So it was a great event. I played 3 really good games. I think I won one, lost one, and tied one, which is always a good record to have. Probably my favorite game was against one of the organizers of another event who was playing a absolutely gorgeous Sons of Horus army that was definitely sort of back and forth and cagey, and like his unit did a thing and then my unit did a thing
Yeah.
that ended with both of our wounded and exhausted Contemptor dreadnoughts punching each other over an objective to see if I could tie up the game. Um,
Wow.
and or if I could tie or win. And the answer was my Contemptor died, so we tied. And it was just a great it was a great time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the Zone Mortalis event. The other 2 events I played in were an Adeptus Titanicus event, and then the one you actually want to talk about. So we'll talk about Adeptus Titanicus first.
Yeah.
Um, Titanicus, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I did not paint enough to do Titanicus because the roster they asked us to bring was 2,000 points. I have about 1,500 points. That's a big difference in Titanicus. There's only so much
Yeah.
war gear you can take to try to make that up.
Yeah.
And so the night before I left, I emailed the organizers and was like, "Hey guys, I'm super bummed, but like, I can't do this." And the organizers, as well as Condit and Sagi on the Goonhammer Discord, rallied to my defense. They had brought a ringer army in case an odd number of people showed up.
Yeah.
And they were like, if you drop, one of us has to play the ringer army, or, hear me out, you could play the ringer army.
Oh.
So I borrowed the uh, cards and data sheets and everything but the rule book from one of the organizers and just played with his force, which was great. It had a warlord whose build I might be stealing, a
Wait, wait,
distraction
wait, wait, wait.
carnifex.
Wait, wait. You can't say warlord whose build I might be stealing while I'm sitting next to and I pull up a warlord that I really want to airbrush
All
if
the
I
builds.
can. Yes. What is the build? Sorry, I need this.
So that was the 2 Gatling blasters on top.
Okay.
That I had given the upgrade so that they could fire swivelly, which was great fun.
Yeah.
A Bellicose Volcano Cannon and the Sun Fury Plasma Annihilator.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting.
Which is sort of enough damage. It let me. There was never a time when I felt like my warlord shouldn't be firing at something or
Yeah.
didn't have a good target.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. Um, I had a Distraction Carnifex Reaver, which was 2 Melter Cannons, which just terrifies the hell out of your opponents. And so it dies awful fast. Um, but when it hits and doesn't roll 3 1s out of the 4 hits it does to not do things, it hurts real bad. So that was sort of a fun one. Then I had like a sensible Reaver carrying sensible weapons and 2 plasma and Mega Bolter Warhounds, which I don't have one of those. And that is sort of the like, if you don't know what you're putting on your Warhounds, the answer is a Plasma Blast Gun and a Vulcan Mega Bolter.
Yeah.
I get why now. It is a
Yeah.
great build for Warhounds. The first game I played was against Condit from Goonhammer and his Legio Volpa list, which is very, very melee heavy. As you put it, that's a very big get fucked axe.
Yes.
He had a Warlord with a massive axe, a Reaver with a only slightly less massive axe, and then another Reaver. Lots and lots of mutations and stuff like that. That was sort of a trying to remember how to play this game with stratagems and objectives and things like that, because I've been doing a lot of learning games recently. And a lot of wacky antics. So the game started off with him. The goal was for him to destroy some supplies at a spaceport before they got overrun. My goal was to try to save the supplies. The very first set of supplies he stepped on was a cargo container full of artillery shells, which detonated and did a bunch of damage to his legs. So I put thermal mines under it too to do more damage to his legs. He slaughtered one of my Reavers in a single turn of combat with his Axe Reaver, and that was terrifying. And so generally speaking, that game was a lot of fun. I lost on objectives. I think I was doing well on killing Titans. And so that was just a blast as a sort of an intro game, a good way to get back into things, a great opponent. My second game I lost because I was a dum-dum. It was essentially each of us had a flag that we needed to hold on to. That flag was worth 20 victory points. His plan was to essentially pour all the firepower into my Warlord until it died. I, of course, forgot to take all the stratagems and stuff that makes Warlords harder to kill. And my approach was to kill all his tinier Titans to sort of slowly whittle down how much fire was coming at me. I think I had the edge in that game, except when my Warlord finally went down and dropped the flag, I thought we had more time than we did, so I shot a Warhound instead of having it run and grab the flag. Then the game got called time, so I lost 24-9 instead of winning 29-24. That's on me. That's just failing. And the third game was a great kill the other guy mission. Just fire all the guns. That one I also lost. Primarily due to my dice betraying me. I got to see a direwolf in the wild. Thick Chicken is indeed great looking.
Yeah.
And thick. So it got all the firepower. I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna kill that. That's where I did glancing blows on 3 of the 4 hits off some melted cannons. That hurt a little bit. Also, despite that being played on an ice planet, my reactors were running Brian Harvey Hot.
Yeah.
And so I had 3 reactor meltdowns over the course of that game, 2 of which were in my lines when they went up.
Oh, God.
So I lost a bunch of my knights to explosions. I damaged my own Titans to explosions. It was a bad day. So that was a little bit my dice betrayed me. But again, a great opponent, a great game. It was a lot of fun. So 0 for 3 for that. Feeling real good as I headed towards the game I don't play, Battlefleet Heresy. If for some reason you are a new listener to this podcast, last episode we go over Brian teaching me how to play Battlefleet Heresy and like what sort of list should I build. And you did not lead me astray. Our show notes say, did Brian doom Eric to failure or glory? Glory. I went 3-0.
What?
Now that is not necessarily indicative of the strength of this list or my skill as a player. The first The first battle for that was versus a guy who is very experienced and like on the community playtesting for Battlefleet Heresy, etc.
Hmm.
But it was an ambush mission, and I was the ambusher, and
Right.
that's a good position to be in.
Yeah.
So he took a big retribution battleship, sort of. It was like a 1,000 point or 1,500 point game. It was a small game to have a battleship show up in,
Yeah.
but we decided narratively that's why I was trying to ambush it. Is like we had
Sure.
caught this battleship without its full complement of escorts.
Sure.
It's time to go big or go home. Um, we went big. We got it down to half its health, and its engines were crippled. And we crippled its escorting cruiser and destroyed one of its three dauntless escorts
Yeah.
in exchange for like one of my lunars got crippled and one of my strike cruisers got crippled.
Oh
The
wow.
Imperial Fist consider that to be a perfectly valid exchange of fire. I did do some things that sort of narratively made sense, but you shouldn't do if you were actually playing to win. So, for example, I didn't squadron my lunars together so that his battleship took a strength 12 torpedo salvo before anything happened versus a strength 6 torpedo salvo because I was like, we're running silent, we can't coordinate enough for
Right.
everybody to fire all on its own, things like that.
Right.
So there's a little bit of that on both sides. It was a great game, sort of visually and narratively.
So this is a thing that people that don't, we are going to do the Battlefleet Gothic episode at some point. Um,
Yep.
this is one thing that I always want to try to stress to people is that like so many things, like when we were talking about the Leagues of Votan earlier, like a lot of the stuff, a lot of the like people losing their minds, people will look at things and just think about what they can kill. Battlefleet Gothic is one of those games that is very, very mission dependent and is very there's such a narrative focus to a lot of the missions that you can't think, you have to look at what you're asking all these ships to do and what kind of flexibility you have instead of just you look at like the Eldar Corsair list and it looks like this broken pile of shit and there are a handful of missions where they are zero fun to play against, but then when you start getting into missions where they have to do things, they can start to really struggle because all of a sudden their fragility starts to really get ramped up and amped up. And so I I just I love that you played it the way you did, and I loved that they're using these things to sort of set the thing up. And I again, I've
Yeah.
asked you zero questions about how this went because I really wanted to find out on air. I'm I'm
Yeah.
super
Like
stoked.
this was
Keep
a
going.
this was a great game. Like we finished this and I was like, I'm sold. I play Battlefleet Heresy now. Um,
Win.
this ended with this very narrative and cinematic. His badly wounded battleship breaks orbit and tries to flee to the void, leaving its escorts sort of burning behind it.
Right.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was also uh my controversial paint scheme of the Auspex return themed. My fleet is my fleet from the perspective of your fleet worked perfectly for this game.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Because
yeah.
like it was like suddenly the Auspex starts like lights up
Yeah.
and fucking bad guys are there. So it was great fun. Um, this was the first game where I tried the double siege cannon strike cruiser.
Oh
Real
yeah. How did
helpful when you're trying to punch through the prow of a battleship.
yes. Yes.
So like I'm also fully sold on my incredibly unsubtle fleet.
For those of you that don't know Battlefleet Gothic, so when you go to fire on something, there's just an armor value, and that's you just roll that. And so bombardment cannons do it on a 4, correct? Yeah. So it's basically you're using the gunnery table, which we'll explain when we get into that, but you're rolling against a 4 instead of if you're shooting at the prow of a battleship, your your
It's a
hit and wound
6.
roller combined is a 6. So being 3 times more effective with a pair of these things lined up together, if you get the arc right, like, yes, this is, you're going
Yeah.
straight to, you're sending them to destination fucked.
Yeah, it's really
I'm
good.
so excited
So
hearing about this.
the other thing we did, which I think will interest you, all of my games were played with alternating activations. Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and there was actually two different types of alternating activations we tried.
Oh, Jesus.
This game and my second game
Hmm.
were built on. I just let my opponent pick because I have no horse in this race.
Yeah.
Where one ship does everything it does, and
Hmm.
that's your activation. So your ship moves, and your ship fires, and your ship launches ordnance.
Okay.
And then their ship moves and fires and launches ordnance.
Okay.
And then at the end, once everybody's activated, there is the bookkeeping ordnance phase where torpedoes fly off in directions, etc.
Okay.
The
I,
second genre is sort of traditional alternating activation. I move, you move, I fire, you fire,
mm,
sort of that. Um, I don't know. I'd have to play like a bunch more games of both.
yeah.
Um, One of the things I noticed for both of them is it made the games much less deadly because, like, your
Yeah, that makes
battleship
sense.
sitting there doesn't take a full turn of shooting
Right.
before it can, like, maybe duck around the planet or do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So I thought it actually got really interesting in terms of like crippling ships became
Yeah.
a big deal. It's like, but I can cripple this ship.
Right.
Just trying to do damage because one of the things is this was a campaign. So part of the thing is like your ships are damaged. So
Yeah.
like killing a ship is great because now the ship is dead. But like doing 4 hull points worth of damage to a battleship means that battleship is going to go into its next game not in a great place.
Right. Right.
Um, it also makes, I think, shooting escorts a much more rewarding experience because escorts die.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, but that squad, like, yeah, I just killed some hunter destroyers, but that squadron's dead now.
Yeah.
They're gone. So that was a lot of fun. That was the first one. The second event, I won, but in fairness, the second game, but in fairness, I could not lose.
Okay.
It was the convoy ambush mission where there's a convoy trying to get from one end of the map to the other. There's a bunch of little contact tokens. As you sail through them, those turn on, and they're either a ship of mine or uh, either fighters and bombers or deadfall torpedoes. Uh, the victory points for the convoy player, I was playing the ambushing player, is how many transports make it off the board.
Yeah, that's always a tough one.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's a tough one, period. For an
Yeah.
event that was actually crunched on time, it was literally impossible. There was not enough turns to get them across the
Oh,
board.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that needs to be this doesn't end on turn 3 or 4. That is
Right.
this ends when either the last convoy ship dies
Yeah.
or it makes it off the board.
Yeah.
So I won that one. Um, it was, I think I had it in the bag,
Yeah.
but I would have liked to play it out. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, their second activation was turning on my Crusade class cruiser that I brought, which is the just all gun ordnance all the time.
Yeah.
Which did a number on their ships. They had taken a couple torpedo salvos, so like his escorts were in a bad place.
Yeah.
The strike cruiser he had was crippled, and I just had 2 squadrons of my escorts get activated,
Yeah.
and an awful lot of torpedoes were left to go.
Yeah.
So like I think I had that in the bag, but I would have liked to see it. And there was a very weird sort of like he had more victory points than me, but he lost. So that was an okay game. It was fun to play. It was fun to like see those missions and be like
Yeah.
narratively this is really cool. This is not an event mission.
No. No,
Um,
it's not.
and then my third one, again, because we were sort of pressed for time, the organizers had a bunch of really cool battle grade scenarios set up. and they were just like, nope, we're not doing any of those. Meeting engagement, pick an opponent, pick a table, go for it. So I played a Sons of Horus player.
Oh, is this the
They
one you sent pictures of?
Yes.
Oh God, it was
His
beautiful fleet.
army is very, very pretty.
Yeah.
Essentially, the Soulforge Studios Chaos ships
Hmm.
have a bunch of open panels
Yeah.
that allow yourself to approach it like it's actually a modern miniature and
Yep.
do, airbrushing and things like that. It was a beautiful fleet. I was overjoyed to play it. He was a great opponent. He had a bunch of like spare ships and was just giving people ships because like they're 3D printed. Like have a cruiser.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he looked at my fleet and he's like, "Oh, I recognize all of those. You don't need these, do you?" And I'm like, "No.
No,
Like
sir, I'm fine.
uh, I just got I'll just print them at home. But thank you." So this was great. We were both real tired. So rather than sort of run out the full 2,500 point fleets because that's a big game,
Yeah.
we did about
Yeah.
1,400, which is basically what ships does he have on the table?
Yeah.
All bring ships to match. We
Yeah.
both brought a battleship because we were both like we want to play with our battleships.
Sure.
And then uh, one of the folks who was helping run the Heresy events gave us both a drink, which was a combination of pineapple seltzer and coconut rum in a plastic cup. Delicious, also much much more alcoholic than it tasted like,
Yeah.
and I hadn't eaten since 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
So we were also both drunk as we played this.
Yeah.
Um, Not super drunk, but it definitely in the like, oh, the meat suit isn't responding quite the way I was expecting it to, and exhausted. So he drove his battleship into an asteroid field, promptly crippled it by failing
Yeah.
2 leadership checks in a row.
Yep.
I We just like hurled ordnance back and forth at each other. One of the things that was great is my carrier that was carrying Imperial style planes instead of Space Marine planes did level up and get the veteran pilots one that gives it a 4-up save.
Mm.
4-up save Imperial bombers, real good.
Yeah.
So like hurling ordnance across the void. I thought I had my carrier in a place that would be pretty safe, but it actually sort of started to get picked off. I had a very bad Thunderhawk raid where literally all of its weapons except its brow torpedoes were crippled. Uh, so I just sort of turned it towards the enemy and was like, "All right, I'm a I'm a launch torpedoes this turn." Then all ahead full. What actually happened was my heroic, uh, repair teams actually fixed all the damage. So it was suddenly in the middle of the enemy fleet in a quote unquote target rich environment. Uh, Blew up the ship in front of it just with a full torpedo salvo. Picked off a couple other ships. One ship blew up and shot like half his fleet as it went down. It was just a glorious death.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the end and the capstone of the game was picking off a couple now wounded dauntlesses for points. And I won that game not by a huge amount. And that was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was Battlefleet Heresy. So I went 3-0 in Battlefleet Heresy,
Wow.
admittedly with the event organizers having put their thumb on the scale a little bit for that.
Yeah. But the more important thing out of that, I mean, one, yeah, you want to go to an event and have a good time. So check that box off. It feels better to, I don't know, it feels good to win. Check that box off. But the main thing is when you said that I'm now a Battlefield Gothic player,
Yeah,
that's
no, it was
that is the ultimate
absolutely
victory.
fun. I had a
Yeah.
couple posts in the Heresy forums because I posted my 7,000 point list. And people were like, "Oh, maybe I should do Battlefleet Heresy next year." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe you should."
Yeah.
Um, it was a lot of fun, and it was fun because there was like 8 players. You're not casually at that event. Like it
Yeah.
starts at 8 o'clock at night, it goes until 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
You are playing a game that hasn't been supported for a decade and a half.
Yeah.
Like everyone is there to have a good time. All the fleets were really pretty.
Yeah.
Um, it was a lot of fun. It was a great event, and yeah, I apparently play Battlefleet Gothic now. So cool.
That is there's just win all around on that. I am my biggest fear was that you were going to run into missions where the choices we made didn't make sense, or there was something where, because again, I didn't look at the missions when I looked at them looked like basic Battlefield Gothic ones, and like my biggest fear was like, oh my god, I'm sending him, he's printing these out, he's painting them, he's going to go there and then run into some stuff that I just like completely botched or whatever. So I'm I'm glad that it ended up being a well-rounded list, and I'm glad you got to fire the double bombardment cannons because
Yeah.
that's God. I
Double
remember,
bombardment cannons were great. They're
yeah.
definitely a like this tempts you into steering your little strike cruiser into some precarious
Oh
positions,
yeah, yeah,
but it's worth it.
yeah.
Also, the second shield upgrade on strike cruisers
Uh huh.
mandatory. Just add
Yeah,
15 points to the cost of the strike cruiser.
yeah,
Take the second shield. Like I was like, okay, Brian told me I should do this, so I'm going to do it.
yeah.
No, that is absolutely essential for the care and function of your strike cruisers.
Well, and the other thing with them too is that whenever I play, I haven't played against the Space Marine. I didn't realize that that was a thing in the
That
2010
was an
FAQ.
option you could do.
Well, because when I think about it now, the guy that I play that plays Space Marine fleets when I play here occasionally, he will use the 2010 FAQ, but prefers to just play like straight book, just
Yeah.
play off of the straight original list. And he never takes a second one. And that's the thing where I always looked at the Space Marine fleet and I was like, if they could take a second shield, now we're in business. Now we're talking. And now after reading that, I'm like, I might be able to do a fleet like that.
Yeah.
Even for regular Battlefleet Gothic. So yeah, man, I'm so excited that worked out for you, and I'm glad that you got to go and have that opportunity because it's such a great game.
Yeah,
It
and that's
yeah.
really what I decided when I signed up for it. Alex self sold me on going to it, and then tragically could not get a visa. Which
Oh
was
wow.
like, if Alex is listening to this, seriously, if you manage to go next year, they will treat you like a king. Everyone was bummed.
Yeah.
Um, and my logic for going to it was like, literally, when am I ever going to play Battlefleet Heresy again?
Right.
That's not, I have bullied someone in my local group to play Battlefleet Heresy. I may
Yeah.
have bullied someone in my local group to play Battlefleet Gothic with me though, so I'm super excited about that. But I was like,
That's
no, like this is what I'm going to, and that was sort of my, when I was trying to decide, do I paint Titans or do I paint like my fleet? The answer was paint the fleet. You will be able to play Adeptus Titanicus
right. Right.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
But like Battlefleet Gothic was literally like, are you going to Nova or are you visiting Brian Harvey? If not, you're not playing Battlefleet Gothic.
That's a good call. That's a good
Which
call.
means we're gonna have to like trick Sky into somehow hosting a like Battlefleet Heresy
Oh,
narrative campaign.
it won't take much. And yeah. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. There's some. I'll talk to you off air about
We'll
some fun
talk.
stuff. We'll talk. There's some fun stuff. Um, so I do have to ask. I mean, this is maybe I can do the. Oh, damn it, my voice is feeling better. But I'm going to do it anyways. No, I was going to do the Larry King voice and try to ask another question. So you've gone to Adepticon. You've gone to all the big ones, correct?
I have not been to Adepticon.
Oh, you haven't? Okay. Well, then never
No.
mind. That was going to be my question. Like, how does that compare? Because like I'll never be able to make Nova because of my work. Like that's
Yeah.
way too early in the year.
You
I
can't
can't take that kind of time off.
you can't go on vacation at the start of a school year. So between the LVO and Nova Open,
Mhm.
uh Nova every day of the week.
Wow.
Um I desperately want to go to Adepticon. Adepticon has two hurdles to it. One is that I always go to LVO with my brother,
Yeah.
and it is just, he lives in Salt Lake. It is
Yeah.
way easier to get from Salt Lake to Las Vegas than it is
Yeah.
Schaumburg, Illinois.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just the Adepticon Hunger Games registration system
Yeah.
uh is hard to do, and like the ways around it are real expensive.
Yeah.
Um and so I kind of go back and forth on Adepticon. Like I desperately like to go. It's on the bucket list at some point.
Yeah.
Um, but Nova hits that nice, like, yeah, registration's frantic, but it's not quite as like,
Yeah.
oh, you forgot to, like, you forgot it was this particular time on this particular day.
Yeah.
Hotel's gone, registration's gone.
Yeah. Ain't
But
nobody got
like,
time for that.
but Nova was a vastly better experience than LVO. I like LVO, but like this felt like a proper convention in a way that
Yeah.
LVO feels like a bunch of games orbiting a vendor hall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the the people are great at both. But yeah, if I had to pick one, and you were just like you can only go to one event between those two for the rest of your life, I'd pick Nova.
Well, well, I mean, that's, yeah,
Yeah.
ringing endorsement.
Also,
Yeah.
Nova may have gotten me into historical miniatures games by accident, and that's its own problem. Played a great game of Pikeman's Lament against a guy from the Badcast Discord, and now I have ordered $300 of Swedish pikemen and cavalry.
And can
So that's a thing.
I didn't know that Pikeman's Lament was a game, and I have to tell you that I have read Pikeman's Lament um, about 20 times more than ever in the last
Than
week
you
as
ever
a
have. Oh
result of
yeah,
this.
no, it's coming.
I had to pull it
Yeah.
up to make sure I had the name right. On our Discord server, there is a Eric's Esoteric Hobby Corner, and there's lots of if you need your Pikeman's Lament fix.
Oh yeah, there's deep historicals chat going on there right now. Uh
Oh man,
a post on the Badcast Discord also reminded me that I do own a game called Dracula's America, which is about Dracula in the Wild West as a skirmish miniatures game.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
because of course,
if you want the real niche stuff where like you can't even get a 8-player events in Nova at 1:30 in the morning together, Eric's Esoteric Hobby Corner for all your wait. They have a what?
yeah.
Needs.
Well, and if I wanted to talk any sort of shit, which I don't, if I did, I also have to point out you also you did all this and didn't get COVID, and I did.
True.
So yeah, I guess I
You
need
you
more Pikeman's Lament, even if I can't say
I'm
it.
I'm telling you. See if you can trade in one of your kids for a historicals army. See if Warlord will take that.
Well, speaking of which, I do need to before we go into our next segment, I do need to clear my throat again and do that. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into Horse Heresy, a game that everyone can hold in their head. So our final segment is called "A Game I Can Hold in My Head," which is a quote from you that you said a while ago. I think it was during. It was actually during the all the lockdowns, correct? When you were talking about
Yeah.
thinking about heresy, and that was when we were in the middle of having a new edition dropped on us that you weren't playing unless you were like breaking lockdown rules or whatever the thing was. So, can you explain what you mean by that as far as a game you can hold in your head?
So yeah, at the time we were definitely locked down. I was working a lot of really long days, and so primarily what I was doing in terms of the hobby was sort of thinking about games and thinking about army themes and things like that. And what had come up was I can't hold ninth edition in my head anymore. So much of it is based on, well, what does my opponent do? What stratagems has he brought? Is a particular thing in or a range of another thing? And then, as we've said right now, like, especially if you add Crusade, there's like 2 layers of rules on top of that. And so I started thinking and getting into Horus Heresy a lot more because I could sort of ponder an army and understand how it would work. And there's a limited tool set for Heresy. Most people get most of the same things. And I could also think about how that would interact with another army. So, like, okay, but what's my plan to deal with the Spartan my opponent is going to bring with
Yeah.
a really nasty combat character and a unit of Terminators in it? I know vaguely what those do. Regardless of sort of what my opponent's is, regardless of his plan, there's only so many ways to come spilling out of a Spartan with a big unit. So that's really what I meant by it is that you can sort of think about it, encapsulate the whole game in a way that you don't have to make a bunch of assumptions about it, and that you can sort of, I just sort of wrap your head around it is I think the best way to sort of put it.
Yeah. And what was interesting was we were having a text conversation, and Mark was kind of chiming in with some of that stuff. Has Mark been on this show? Mark has been on this show. Yes,
Yeah,
from
he
Battle
was
House.
the teach us how to play competitive
Yes.
40K.
Sorry, my brain's just yeah. I got a little. I've been in my house for 5 days. Brain going here. Yeah, it was kind of interesting because we were having that conversation, and it really got me to thinking about Horus Heresy and just kind of. I'm not going to go on some rambling tangent like I did when we were discussing this before recording, but it's like a thing that I'm kind of big on in the world right now is just like looking at things, and sometimes people will get upset when something comes out, or a show came out, and I don't like it, and sometimes there's a thing where it's like not everything is for you, and the things that aren't for you just don't do them anymore, and sometimes that thing can change. I have friends that have gotten out of 40K locally, and they're just not in that space where they want to put all of the work and effort that goes into it. And I still have been, kind of fighting the good fight and doing that. But sometimes I'm kind of looking at it and wondering as a 46-year-old gamer, is 40K just a thing that's kind of 40K in sort of keeping up with and chasing the dragon and doing this kind of thing and keeping up with the meta and constantly having to look at that stuff versus I just want to roll up and throw some dice. Is 40K kind of a game that's it's not that the game's moving away from me. Am I is the amount of bandwidth that I have to dedicate towards keeping up with stuff, has that steered me towards more am I getting pushed into historical 40K because of that? And not pushed into it,
Mhm.
is that becoming a more attractive option? And the answer to that I think is yes. Like I still 40K I can still do, but the way that I've been playing and the way I've been able to get people to play locally who aren't interested in doing it is using the Tempest of War thing because it's something they can wrap around their head around. Like you don't have the word a season, when it comes to
Yeah,
secondaries, which are how you go to do the thing. And it's like last edition, I can wrap my head around stratagems. I can look at somebody's army and know the stratagems they want to use with it. That's fine. But then when you add this additional layer of, oh, and then there are secondaries that you're going to do, it's kind of a bridge too far for me as far as that goes. And I hope in 10th edition that there's some sort of a Tempest of War type of thing or way to do that so that 40K can work. But it is really refreshing and going back and looking. I've been stuck at home. I've been reading through some some heresy rule books and assembling some models, and it is kind of refreshing to look at it because things have changed, but it's not like my army's been invalidated.
yeah,
And
it feels very familiar. Um, in a way that I think is really appealing. And I think one of the things is like 40K at this point is a very engaged experience. There's
yeah,
there's all the FAQs and rules and seasons and things like that. We had a question come up at the club uh, this Friday that was, how many command points do you get at the start of a Crusade game now? And
mm,
there's like rules is written, all that command point change stuff, that was all match play, so that doesn't apply to us. but should it?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. Talk it over with your opponent as to whether you want to, cut the number of command points you get in half.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of things like that that I think offer, if you really want to do a deep dive into 40K, there's a lot you can do with that, and that can be a very engaged hobby. I've always said I didn't want 40K to go this way, but like it is a thing for 40K. It has a little bit of an esport feel. You
Yeah.
have let's talk about builds, let's talk about this season's rules. What is the secondary meta right now? And yeah, it's possible that you don't want that.
Yeah.
And I wrote an article at some point. I think it was when the Grandmaster edition came out for Adeptus Titanicus. That I was like, not all GW games are for everyone.
Yeah.
Like you're not actually obligated to buy every game GW makes. And I think that as part of it is that Heresy is a much more stable, much more slower paced. The odds of getting a balanced data slate that is going to say, oh yeah, by the way, Terminators work differently now.
Yeah.
Is pretty low. And that has that was really valuable during the pandemic for me, just because you couldn't interact with people, but it's still a thing I find pretty refreshing. In terms of being able to go like, yep, I know what that does. Like, cool. Let's just go with that. And not having to like revisit my list all the time. Is real nice.
Yeah. And I think too, just a sign of a good edition is that as I've been going through, because I have to rebase all my models. I think the Terminators, no, the Terminators run 40s to begin with, so they're okay. But I mean, when I painted my stuff 7 years ago or whatever, God, whatever it was for the early World Eater stuff, those are all on 25s. Because that's what they came with
Yeah.
from Forge World. So it's like I'm having to go back and do those. But as I'm going through and looking, I did have a couple of units of bolters and chain axes because that was fun and awesome. And now that's like 50 makes your Marine 50% more expensive. And
That's a real expensive Marine.
I was like, what if we just ran with pistols and axes? Like we could do that, right, guys? Like that's refreshing. Bolters just slow you down, so let's just run with pistols. But yeah, there wasn't, in fact, there was more. It's less that I have to go through and change that one unit, and more that now I'm looking at other options and saying, oh my God, like these are a legitimate thing to go for, and the
Mm-hmm.
game's opened up more, but it hasn't changed the game in such a way that I can't imagine what that looks like without putting it on the table. It's still stable enough, and yeah, it might just be a thing where I'm at that point where this is a level of bandwidth that I have, is
Yeah.
to, and I am perfectly okay with that. I never get sick of painting World Eaters because here I am.
Here we are.
So this is a this is a weird segue into there are units that seem to be less attractive. Um, I don't know. I don't have as much of a. There's a huge heresy community here in the South Bay area in San Jose, um, all the way up to San Francisco. There's the Horus Heresy groups up there are fantastic. I haven't had time to get up there and work with any of those or have chats with them directly, so I don't get to have a lot of great conversations as far as like breaking down units. But as I was going through, I was looking at units that I don't have, either because the kits came out when eighth edition had started, or I just, they just never really showed up on my radar. I'd like to do a positive Praetor segment, which is going to sound a hell of a lot like an optimistic Archon ripoff. And yes, it absolutely is. A unit that I don't hear a lot of great things about. And in fact, I think Sky at his store was saying that he wish he didn't have as many boxes of these in stock as he does. Um, which to me is always a challenge accepted. Third edition Dark Eldar player response to anything.
Yeah. Time to
Tar-
clear some Sky's inventory.
well, I was looking at it and it's like, so I have 10 red butchers that I'm waiting to assemble, which means I'll have 20 of those. I'm doing 10 cataphracti, which means those will be like cataphracti number, you know,
Yep.
16 through 25 in my army. Tartaros Terminators, are they, is it just me or are they just seen as generally a less attractive option?
So they are, and I think everyone's wrong. I am 30K's foremost Tartarus Terminator apologist. I love Tartarus Terminators.
Okay.
Um, so the disclosure here is if you play Imperial Fists, all of the drawbacks to Tartarus Terminators go away because you just
Mm,
give them Storm Shields, and now everybody's got a 3-up save regardless of what kind of Terminator armor they have, at
mm,
which point they are just manifestly better at being Terminators.
yeah.
But if you're not playing the best and most correct Legion, I think there is still a place for Tartarus Terminators.
Yeah.
I think one of the big disadvantages they had was so many people's special Terminators were Cataphracti that people sort of got used to the idea that Cataphracti Terminators are the default. And then you start looking at Tartarus Terminators, and the first thing that sort of jumps out is the 5-up invuln save. And a 5-up invuln save just isn't all that compelling.
Right.
So what I think the big deal with Tartarus Terminators is that they can run
Yes.
and they can sweep.
Right.
And sweeping is a big deal. I have killed 2 Praetors so far by sweeping their units after we won combat.
Yeah.
In my mind, Cataphracti Terminators are for bullying scary units that are going to be fearless, that there's not going to be a really weighted who killed the most guys. There's not going to be like that roll isn't going to be at like a -4 to see if your unit breaks. It's going to be at a -1.
Yeah.
Things where staying power is more important. Tartarus Terminators are for massacring units that aren't prepared for 2-up armor saves.
Right.
And so I think going after, like, if you've got Tartarus Terminators with Lightning Claws, that's going after 3-up armor save guys. If you equip them with Power Fists or, like, don't do Power Axes, it doesn't make any sense. Just do
No.
Power Fists. They start opening up. If a Tartarus Terminator unit gets in, and they can get in better, they are going to start rolling your lineup. They're going to start massacring units, and you're not going to do much against them. So, for example, because we're gonna talk about them. So I charge a unit of Breachers with a Tartarus Terminator squad.
Mm-hmm.
That unit of Breachers is going to get slaughtered, and that's okay. So that's where thing. And I think the big deal is because Tartarus Terminators can then run, they can move on.
Yeah.
Cataphracti Terminators tend to be that title bout, your tooled up HQ, my tooled up HQ. The thing I mentioned for holding in your head. Cataphracti Terminators are the guys who come spilling out of a Spartan to win a fight that involves 700 points of models on both sides. Where nobody's sweeping anybody. We're all just going to die.
It's just a mosh pit of extra.
Yeah, at which point, slugging with, Power Fists and a 4-up invulnerable save and things like that becomes a much better use for them. So I think, and this is sort of a thing I learned playing Eldar with the very old Jetbike Autar with Mantle of the Laughing God,
Mm-hmm.
was that Autark is not meant to kill combat characters.
Right.
That Autark is meant to go massacre tactical squads.
Yeah.
I feel like Tartarus Terminators are the same thing. Their best use is just wiping the floor with anyone who's not a dedicated close combat squad, and even some that are. Like, I would match a unit of Tartarus Terminators against a Despoiler squad, or
Hmm.
a squad of tactical marines with chain bayonets, where I think your opponent will get tempted to be like, I can get them into combat, and the Tartarus Terminators will say, yeah, but we've got a 2-up save and 2 wounds.
Yeah.
So good luck. And 2 attacks each. So that's really
Yeah.
where I see Tartarus Terminators coming in, is they're not here for the Terminator fight.
Right.
They're here for the everything else fight.
So, in the thing where, for me, what got me, so oddly enough, what got me looking at them was looking at different heavy flamer options to steal bits from for Mistos conversion for my World Eaters and the heavy flamer thing. And I was like, oh, that's from this kit. And I was looking at the kit and I was like, it's a good looking kit. And I don't have any. And why don't I have
Yeah,
any? And I was like, they just never really showed up. And I was like, well, they have the 5-up instead of the 4-up. And I'm like, okay, they're 25 points cheaper. They have a 5-up invul instead of the 4-up. They don't have heavy, so they can sweep and they can run. I want to run Berserker Horde Rite of War, which gives an extra 2 inches to running, an extra 2 inches to charges. And I'm like, they move 7 instead of 6, 150 points. And then that, honestly, what you were saying about them not being designed to go after other Terminators, but being, just ganging up and bullying. Part of the whole thing that makes Berserker Assault work is that they really have to focus on target priority, and you're sort of picking off which threat you don't want to crash into your line. And
yeah,
so with a 2-up, 5-up, I mean, if they go after them, are there things that can wipe them out? Absolutely. But it's going to take some doing. And all of that doing means that the spoiler squads aren't getting touched as they're bravehearting
yeah.
it across the field. So I kind of feel like they feel like they're made for World Eaters, which is weird because
I think,
I don't see them in World Eater colors all that often.
yeah, and I think a lot of that is just like they got a plastic kit way later.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that, like, I've been struggling with this. I've similarly been sort of thinking about a unit for how do you deal with those like backfield sniper units. One of our local guys is playing Alpha Legion, and like I don't want all my dudes to die to sniper fire.
Right.
And I'm like, maybe I drop down a unit of Terminators with an assault cannon and a bunch of other guns and go like, hey, nice sniper squad you have there. Shame if something happened to it. Um, and my original plan for that was, oh, I'll use the Cataphracti guys.
Hmm.
And then I was like, okay, that expensive unit of Cataphracti Terminators wipes out a recon squad.
Yeah. Then what?
Now what?
Yeah. You're going to waddle
Uh,
6 inches a turn.
you're going to waddle across the board 6 inches a turn, whereas the Tartarus Terminators the next turn can move 11 inches if they run.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and that's real nice. Um, or again, like if they charge that squad, they can sweep them. So yeah, I think that's the thing is they're going to lose Terminator fights. Don't bring them to Terminator fights.
No.
Again, unless you're playing Imperial Fists and you've got Storm Shields, at which point absolutely bring them to Terminator fights
Yeah.
and just go all day. But yeah, I think they're a unit that is undervalued because I don't think enough people think about bully units in Heresy, and I think the other thing is that they don't feel like they're cheap enough
Hmm.
compared to Cataphracti. But I think the issue is Cataphracti need a ride. Like, you
Yeah.
need to put Cataphracti Terminators in something
Yeah.
to make them go.
Yeah. And these guys,
Whereas Tartarus Terminators, you could run them up the field.
yeah, they feel like they can just braveheart it across the field. I mean, it's 7 inches. I mean, that's a, and
And
running.
like in a Zone Mortalis battle, an 11-inch run is
Yeah.
like most of the way across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting when you
Yeah.
were talking about the axe thing, and I absolutely agree. I think plus the axe on that kit is also a Forge World option. So yeah, the axe to me just seems like a trap because you don't want them striking last. Whatever they're going up against, you want them to get in and clear things. Um,
If it is worth having them strike last, it's worth having them double out.
right,
Like,
right.
I I love power axes. I love the way they look.
Hmm.
I want to make them a thing.
Yeah,
Especially given they don't get pistols. There's no justification for the well, you get an extra attack. You don't with Terminators. They're
yeah,
just a trap, or if you're trying to run them slow.
yeah,
Like if you were
yeah,
trying to run okay, I am gonna deep strike down, riddle a guy with bullet holes, and then sort of keep going in bullet marines. It doesn't matter. But yeah, in that case, just take lightning claws or
yeah.
power swords. Like power swords are just as cheap. Um, so yeah, I feel like the axes are a trap. That being said, I will probably invariably make a unit with axes because I think they look dope.
Yeah, they do.
And
They do.
yeah, they look good is like a full reason uh to take uh a unit in Horus Heresy. But yeah, it's axes are a trap.
So, would you say I might want to put these into a 1K Zone Mortalis list?
Hypothetically speaking. Um I mean, it depends on who they're running with. Like,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
so the one thing I will say is, and one of the things I desperately would like to change
Hmm.
is the characters in Tartarus Terminator armor
Hmm.
don't get uh, a Iron Halo or anything that gives them a 4-up invulnerable save,
Yeah.
which is awkward because your character having a 5-up invulnerable save is not great.
No. No.
So I struggle with that a little bit. So similarly, like so, if you hypothetically were to take, say, a Legion champion in Cataphractii armor, don't take Tartarus Terminators because you've just turned off all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Because now you've got one guy who's heavy and can't run. On the
Yeah.
other hand, if you are taking, a Centurion who's just taking, they just have a refractor field, so
Hmm.
there's no downside to like they've got a 5-up too.
Yeah.
They've got Artificer armor. They're not heavy. Cool. Um, so yeah, it's definitely a possibility for a 1,000-point Zone Mortalis list, which is an excellent segue to our next segment, which is in exchange for Brian Harvey teaching me how to build a list for Battlefleet Gothic. We're going to talk a little bit about building a 1,000-point Zone Mortalis list for Brian, so that he actually has something to like paint towards. That's a coherent list instead of like IDK. What's cool?
Right.
And the core of that is, Brian, you've got some ideas of things you absolutely want to include. What are those?
And thank you, by the way, for holding my hand and reinforcing my clarity here because it's not great. So I put it initially. I felt bad. I was like, okay, these are the requirements. You have to get a Legion champion. I want an Armistos Centurion with a heavy flamer. And my reasoning was because fuck you, that's why. I don't know what it is. I just really want to do a character with a twin linked heavy flamer with chain axe blade bayonets on it. I don't know why. It just seems like the most World Eaters thing ever. From a rules standpoint, I get that there are better uses for them. I just want to do it. I want a contemptor in there because I love dreadnoughts.
Yep.
10
Also,
basic,
contemptors are real good.
yeah, 10 basic bolter boys with chain bayonets because I painted them. And I'm working on 5 support marines with heavy flamers. So I'd like that worked in. So with that framework in mind, I'm trying to find my basic map that I've got here. I've already filled up what the chain bayonet boys are 120. Armistos and champions, those are going to be roughly about 100 each. The heavy flamer guys are going to be 100. So, and the contemptor is going to be
Yep.
175 ish. So what is this? What do I need if I'm going to take this stuff to make a list that makes sense as far as the Zone Mortalis missions go?
Yeah. So to my mind, with all of this, first of all, I fully support taking an Armistos with a heavy flamer because the last part of kill main burn is burn.
I don't
You
have
got
enough
to do it.
burn in my list. Yes.
Um, so let's talk about. We're going to go in sort of reverse order. We're going to talk about the Armistos first, and then we're going to talk about the Centurion.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Legion champion. So for the Armistos, he needs to go with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And my suggestion for that. So we've talked about this, and the first instinct is, oh, heavy flamer squad, like just the burner boys. But there's a couple problems with that in my mind. The first one is that when the Armistos isn't firing, he can give +1 ballistic skill to the unit he's with.
Right.
That doesn't help if it's a heavy flamer squad.
Yeah.
Also, realistically, in Zone Mortalis, you're not going to have a 6 frontage room to fire 6 heavy flamers. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So to my mind, what that does is that adds a lot of heavy firepower to another unit. But the Armistos is also heavy, which means you're not going to be able to run. You're not going to be able to, you start having issues with that.
Yeah.
So it should go with a unit that's heavy. What unit is heavy in Zone Mortalis? Breachers.
You can't pick it up on the mic. My head is nodding vigorously, and
so
giant.
I think there's a couple benefits here. It's a heavy unit, so no downside. They're a pretty durable unit. All things considered, for 1 wound Marines, they're pretty durable. I can't remember what the unit is called for the World Eaters, but like World Eaters canonically do like them some breachers. Lots of blood spatter effects on shields. But then there's also 2 other sort of benefits that I think play well to the Armistos. One is you can gear up a breacher sergeant pretty decently, so that you have someone to eat charges and, more importantly, challenges that isn't the Armistos. So you had mused a little bit about what if meteor hammers. You can do power fists, things like that. You can get somebody who's got a 5-up invulnerable save, which is not nothing in melee, and a 2-up armor save with artificer armor. Are they going to stand up against someone's praetor? No. But like, are you going to be a little wary challenging him if you're just running around with a despoiler sergeant? Yeah. Like the breacher sergeant may win that fight. And so I think that's good. The other thing is, if you want to keep the there's fire here approach to this, you can take 2 flamers as your special weapons in a 10-man breacher squad. I think it's 5 guys. Yeah, for every 5 models, you can exchange their bolter for a flamer, a meltagun, a graviton gun, or a las cutter. You could exchange it for a flamer. And then similarly, the other guys have bolters, which benefit from the +1 ballistic skill if you're not in flamer range, which as an Imperial Fist player, hitting on 2s in bolters is nicer than people think it is.
Yeah.
Or like if you wanted to really splash out for tons of stuff, you could slip a couple Volkite chargers in as well. And again, hitting with Volkite chargers on 2s, that's a lot of dead dudes before you get in.
Oh god, the entire unit can take those.
The entire unit could take those if you wanted to seriously just be like, essentially, fuck you, that's why. Is
it's a lot of fuck you, that's why.
One dude with a heavy flamer being like, so if you try to get close to me, I'm going to set you on fire. And if you don't try to get close to me, fuck you, that's why. I got lightning guns.
Wow.
Similarly, the breacher sergeant can take a combi weapon if you want more flamers worked into this sort of list. So I think there's a really nice core there with a breacher squad in Armistos. I hadn't thought about this before we started talking, and now I sort of want to do this. I have always been struggling with but who should go with a breacher squad? And I think the answer is possibly in Armistos. give him some sort of. He doesn't need to take a boarding shield because you're not
Yeah.
playing a Rite of War where it's important that he have a shield.
Yeah.
Give him some sort of power weapon
Hmm.
to make sure that he can fight if it comes down to it, and then go to town. So that is sort of one. What I like to do is I like to come up with the things that will need buddies to go with them.
Yeah.
So we've got a Centurion and some Breachers. The Contemptor doesn't need buddies. It's a Contemptor. I don't think the Heavy Flamer Squad needs someone to go with them, or particularly benefits
Yeah.
with someone going with them. That is just basic. That's a hallway denial unit. That's you
Hmm.
hide them behind cover, and the answer is yeah. If you get close, you're going to have a bad day. Which leaves the Centurion and the Tac Squad. What type of Centurion do you want to run?
Well, I mean, I
Sorry,
was
the
leaning.
Champion, because the
Yeah.
Champion is empirically the best choice for small games.
Yeah. I mean, I was leaning towards that only because I basically just took the conversion that I did was just taking well, it's not even a conversion. It was more of just a kit bash sort of thing. I just took the giant axe guy and put a berserker bear head on him that has all the stuff carved in his forehead
Okay.
and some assorted flair. So I wanted to do a guy who's
Yeah.
pretty well along the path here, and he's ready for
Yeah.
Terra. We'll just call it that. But I mean, I'm also not opposed. I mean, if the points there are some points available here, it looks like. I mean, we could. I mean, spoilers could be a thing too. I
So
don't have an
that's
issue
my
with that, and that always works.
so that's currently sort of my thought is with a unit of. So if we got the Tac Squad with chain bayonets, the Heavy Flamer Squad, the Contemptor, the Breachers, the Armistos, and the Legion Champion, you have. So let me do some quick Excel math. You have 175 points of war gear
Hmm.
to sort of spread, but like I've already taken care of the Heavy Flamer. The
Yeah.
Champion has a Paragon Blade, so you don't worry about it. But like, what can I give to the Breachers? What sort of weapons do I give to the Contemptors? What do I give to the Despoilers? You've got 175 points of headroom, which is pretty decent. Like that'll disappear fast if you start giving people Volkite Chargers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's a lot of headroom, and I think Despoilers are a good choice,
Yeah.
especially with World Eaters. Like that's a lot of attacks. That's a lot of chop. You get, you've got chain axes, which is great. One of the things in Zone Mortalis I have found is you don't get multiple turns of shooting,
Hmm.
unless things are stalled in a weird way. So like,
Yeah.
uh, the spoilers only getting to shoot their bolt pistols. Okay, um,
Yeah.
that's not what they're there for.
Yeah.
You can again tool those up pretty well. You can take power weapons, one for every 5 units. You can take a charnable weapon if you really felt like it. If you really wanted to work in some hand flamers, you could do that. The Despoiler Sergeant, again, can be tooled up decently. Not super well, but decently. You don't have to worry about challenges for him because your champion has to accept challenges. So I would tool him up for killing dudes.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's a good squad for a champion to go with, especially at this point where I think, I'm going to impute some thoughts on your local gaming group. That's a good narrative unit for
Yeah.
that to go with. That's a
Yeah.
guy and some World Eaters. It's not an elite force of a particular detachment, a particular famous unit. It's just some despoilers. It's just some guys with
Karn,
chain axes.
you're saying it's not Karn with some red butchers?
It's not Karn and some red butchers, just hypothetically, or Sigismund with 5 of his boys. Like this is a small combat that will not get written about by Aaron Dembski Bowden,
Right.
and that's
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, And I think that's a good list. Like that's your tac squads having been charged by World Eater chain bayonet squads in Zone Mortalis. A World Eater tactical squad is not nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and somebody has to hold objectives.
Yep.
The despoilers, I think, are a good complement to the Legion champion. It keeps them sort of cheap and cheerful. I think the Breacher squad offers some really interesting sort of tactical choices of what is close range combat but not melee combat.
Yeah.
With just enough there that like they're not going to get slaughtered unless they get charged by, say, a Tartarus Terminator unit.
Right. Right.
Or like a Cataphractii Terminator unit. Like you will struggle a little bit against Cataphractii, although the answer to that is a Contemptor.
Yeah.
Because brutal 3 and doubling out Cataphractii,
Yeah.
making 3/4 up saves or die is real hard.
Yeah.
And unless they've brought special Cataphractii, or again are Imperial Fists and have taken one of the best Warlord traits in the game, they're hitting you on 5s.
Yeah.
And you're hitting them on 3s.
Yeah.
So you're gonna mulch that unit pretty hard.
Now for the Contemptor, I mean the fist is a clear no brainer. So you think a chain fist and fist?
I wouldn't bother with a chain fist.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying because the only thing that's not going to be great for much.
Yeah. There's no vehicles in Zone Mortalis, and so I mean, if you were sort of future proofing for like this Contemptor is going to have to go out into the world someday, I could see a chain fist and a fist. For me, I think a classic chain fist. Sorry, not chain fist. The regular fist and an assault cannon has served me really well.
Yeah.
Put whatever gun you want and have points for in the fist. I run bolters because that's what the really old Contemptor came with.
Yeah.
A flamer would be characterful for this force. Meltagun has never, like, no one has ever gone, gee, I wish I didn't bring Meltaguns. But in my mind, the real engine of a Contemptor in Zone Mortalis is that brutal 3 fist.
Yeah.
What is your plan for dealing with other Contemptors? Brutal 3 fist. What is your plan for dealing with a tooled up, what is your plan for dealing with Karn or a tooled up Praetor? Brutal 3 fist.
Yeah.
My Legion champion, who will kill your Legion champion. What is your plan for him? Brutal 3 fist. It just works. That's a solid 1,000-point Zone Mortalis list.
And it happens to hit on a lot of things that I want to paint. When you mentioned Breachers, that's a unit that has just never popped up for me at all. It's one of the true, like, Recon Marines would be another one. Like, it's just not something that pops up for me. It's not that I'm opposed to them, but it's like you were mentioning, the World Eaters have the Triari, which are their dedicated boarding.
Yeah.
We know who the captain of that of that group is. And the modeling opportunities
there's
are
stuff
just
written about them.
Yeah, and like you said, the shields,
that's the thing.
Great pallets for blood.
Like, the shields are great pallets for blood. They're great pallets for transfers. There are a ton of, head to cults3d.com. There are a ton of people making third-party shields.
Yeah.
So you could go for a more sort of gladiator aesthetic.
Yeah.
There's lots of shields out there. A guy with a 3D printer. As long as you don't need to play at Warhammer World, you're good.
Right.
And potentially, I think that would also be really cool from a modeling perspective, is what if you made a really dynamic, aggressive-looking Breacher squad?
Yeah.
My guys are all, form a shield wall, advance slowly, bolters tucked into the firing port of the shield. It's an orderly advance. It's the Imperial Fists.
Yeah.
What if like what if you're trying to bash someone to death with that shield? What
Yeah.
if those shields are smaller and so you've got more room to model, these guys carry bolt pistols.
Yeah.
You can holster their bolters. We all have like 1,000 extra bolters you can maglock to the back of some Mark III dude.
Yeah.
And yeah, go to town with like you know at least one guy's got to be doing the like "Are you not entertained?" pose with
Right.
a shield and a pistol.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's a lot of modeling opportunity around that, or like shield back, flamer out. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of really cool stuff you could do with that unit, and I think it's a fun unit, and I think it like I gave my Zone Mortalis list to somebody, and their immediate comment was like, "But where are the breachers?" Like
Right. What are we doing here?
it is the Zone Mortalis, and my answer is they're not painted yet.
Yeah.
I've got like 47 shields sitting in Simple Green right now. But
Oh my
like
gosh.
that is I think an iconic unit. I think it's good for this, and I think it plays
Yeah.
well with this Armistos. That I think you have to get that. I think you have to get that model out of your brain.
I
Like
it yeah, it just demands attention since the moment that I looked at it, when I looked at the entry and I'm like, okay, what that's a console that was added later in first
yeah,
edition. And I was like, what is this? And I'm like,
and its rules weren't fun in first edition.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
its
yeah.
rules gave everybody master crafting, which meant technically you had to roll each shot separately.
Uh,
And I was just like, nope, not doing that.
yeah. No, no thanks. Yeah, when I read it, I was like a character with the twin linked heavy flamer, and I'm like, you've got my attention. What else does it do? I don't need a lot of those things, but I can use those, and I just want the excuse to model it. I
Yep.
really do. I really do. Well, I'm really glad that you brought up the point about making them dynamic and charging because I don't know why that hadn't occurred to me. And now that I think about it, I think I do have some older Mark III resin ones because they did have a couple of poses that, or one at least, I think, that was running. And so I
Mm-hmm.
should be able to do something with that to, yeah, because they need to be aggressive.
And like that would even be fun in a unit that's painted so that most of them aren't aggressive.
Hmm.
Is you've got a couple who are the nails are ticking.
Yes.
It's time to go. Like, yeah, shield balls are cool and all, but hear me out. I could bash that guy's skull in, and you all are in my way.
Oh God, and I do have a blister of the bunny ears ready too, because this would
Yeah,
be a unit that the bunny ears are absolutely coming out
yeah.
for. Because
And
the
the
bunny
heavy
ears look
flamer
like,
at least.
yeah,
The heavy flamer at least in Zone Mortalis gets +1 to wound.
right, right.
That's going to be a bad day for whoever gets hit by that.
Wow. Damn it, Eric, you're a good man. You do good work. You're a good man, Eric, and
I
thorough.
mean, I mean, tell me that after you win a game or two.
It doesn't matter. I don't. I always tell people this, and it's sometimes people. I'll hear people just in the Discord group for the Bay Area Heresy thing. Some people were asking, like, "What do you do with World Eaters? Like, just run them forward and charge? Like, it doesn't really seem like it's all that." And I was like, "I don't care if it's. I don't. It has been effective. I've won games. I've never played Heresy and just felt like I can't do anything in this game. It doesn't even matter to me. I know I've lost games, but they don't stand out because it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. I mean, when you get to make contact with when you have a 20 man assault squad that's barreling across and getting some of them are getting picked off. You just imagine the ones that aren't getting picked off getting more and more pissed, and it's
just
just like it's
angrier and
like
angrier.
it's
Yeah,
it's it's from Betrayer. It's Karn hitting the shield wall and just absolutely losing his shit, and you're like, you just it
and
is.
honestly, I think that build for World Eaters
Mhm.
is Zone Mortalis.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
there was a guy at Nova who was sort of surreptitiously recording the balance of different factions
okay,
in because Zone Mortalis Zone Mortalis was going on at the same time as one of the just stand-up fight Heresy events.
Hmm.
All of the Salamanders players were playing in the big games,
Yeah.
and all of the World Eaters players were playing in Zone Mortalis.
Yeah.
Because just some maniacs with chain axes
Yes.
is Zone Mortalis.
Screaming
Like,
through hallways. I mean, how is
yeah,
that not? Oh, God damn it. Oh, I love it. Well, Eric, you picked a winner, but you might have to fire up your 3D printer because, yeah, those shields are going to be an issue. I'm going to have to.
I will accept that as a cost of luring you into this army.
Okay. If they have shields with like, well, they don't even need to have studs on them or
Yeah,
spikes because, I mean, I have a million ways to do that and
and
all the
you
extras.
might also know a guy who has a file for running Mark III legs that can be resized to get you approximately Mark VI Marines tall. Just hypothetically.
Sorry, I just had a moment internally there for a second. And
It turns out if you take some of the true scale things that were meant for Primaris and you scale them down by 95%, you get a Mark VI Marine.
I love it.
Because I decided similarly, like my phalanx warders can't all be short. That's not.
Right, right.
I'm not okay with that. So
Yeah.
I had to go dig some stuff up. So yeah,
Oh
we
my
can
God.
talk. There
That's
there are
beautiful.
resources. There are resources to support you, Brian. You're not
Yeah.
alone.
Oh, God damn it, Eric. This, thank you. Thank you for being a bright, shining turd in this week. Um, I was joking with Cara about how end of the world this is. It's like, okay, the guy that went to a convention has fun, doesn't get COVID. The guy staying at home gets COVID. It's actually raining here today in California, which I didn't know that was possible in
Mm-hmm.
September.
Which is,
Um,
I was under the impression, not a thing that happens.
it's not, and damn it, yeah, it's supposed to rain tomorrow too. But man, this has just turned into like a make a wish day for me. I get to record and talk about fucking Horus Heresy and squats coming back to 40K, and then now I'm excited about converting breachers for world eaters. Like, and while this was going on, I have a Fender Bass 6 that just showed up. If you're a musician and don't know what that is, look it up. It's a weird instrument. Like, this is, and my kids haven't been screaming this entire time. This is just, thank you. This is the best day I've had all week. So
My
I,
pleasure.
I love it. So for all of you out there, um, I, the Terrainosode will be next. Um, I really hope that's going to be a good resource for people. And it's a topic that is very, very near and dear to my heart. You guys won't have to wait 2 months for it because October definitely eases up for me like crazy as far as having to go anywhere, that kind of stuff. We're also going to have the narrative event that'll be, or the narrative events discussion to go in the other ones. So the narrative war gamers agreed to come on with us, and I feel bad because we've been kind of kicking that down the road a lot, but it's just I want the timing to be right. I also have a narrative AT-18 or a Titanicus event that I'm going to go to in November, so I have to paint up. It's you can only bring Nemesis Warbringer or larger. So I'm painting up my Warlord. I'm
It's the
painting up.
big boys.
I'm gonna paint the iconoclast for it, and
Oh
it's some
yeah.
giant get fucked ruined city that smaller titans can't do their thing in. I don't care. It's from the G3 Heresy guys, and I'm sure I'll have stuff to talk on that, and I might have if I can get Anthony, the guy that's running it, if I can get him to come on, I absolutely will. Because those guys, when you look at the pictures from their events, they absolutely
Yeah.
know how to do them right. The terrain that he's painted for those events has almost made me just say fuck it and figure out where I can put a resin printer in my house because the grimdark terrain stuff is
Oh,
just
it's
looks
fabulous.
phenomenal. Yeah, yeah. So before we go, let me see if there's something really quick. I put an announcement in our server and I said, "Hey, anything you guys want us to discuss today?" So, Eric, I'm going to rapid fire some questions at you and then we're going to close out. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Oh, these questions are choice. Russ asked, rank the deaths of Primarchs in the siege so far.
Um, I'm actually gonna go with Mortarion at number one. He's not
Oh,
technically died; he's banished or whatever.
sure.
Um, Mostly because I just liked Jagged Icon digging deep
Yeah.
and stabbing a fool.
Yep.
Um, like there's nothing quite as nice as, yeah, I'm on the ropes, but I don't have to win. You just have to lose as a theme, and I just love that fight. Yeah, that's number one for me. Uh and then from there we'll see.
Okay. I'm into that. Um, Lou, aka rocket scientist, any heresy experiences, Space Hulk kill team, and Leagues of Votan thoughts? I was like, hey, you accidentally kind of nailed our episode, so you're good.
So one and three check. Hyped
Yeah.
for Space Hulk Kill Team.
Yeah.
Don't know. Our boxes are both delayed because they've been lost in the warp. Uh, I'm looking forward to it, partially because I think that terrain will work better for Zone Mortalis if you're using a mat instead of the tiles.
Yep. Yeah. That's exactly why I bought it. The kill team, I'm like, all right, I'll enjoy playing it, but when I looked at that box, I was like, this will supplement all the industrial terrain that I'm doing that will turn into the other parts of the ship's interior that we are fighting over. So, Sky, oh yeah, if he
I'm
wasn't such a
answering this.
nice person and didn't have a great store, I would, yeah. The different magnetic gripping capacity of the marks of armor in relation to one, boarding actions, two, uses for hazing where new recruits have to get suspended upside down. I want formulas, Eric.
So formulas do not make for good radio. The answer for boarding actions is Mark. The answer for boarding actions is Mark 3.
Okay.
The answer for hazing where new recruits have to hang upside down is Mark 6, because you can have them try to peck at each other with the beaky helmets. Honorable mention goes to any Night Lords player with the bat wings, because a bunch of recruits with bat wing helmets hanging upside down is amazing.
From Sky, also the airspeed of an unburdened and burdened Thunderhawk.
There's no such thing as an unburdened Thunderhawk. Each machine spirit bears the weight of history and duty.
All right. Oh God, Alamo Melt at Evil Space
That's a
Elves.
whole episode.
Any reflections on the life of a commission painter and the joy that you're not one now? I still am one. I have to finish up these. These will be part of the terrain episode. I'm doing the God, what is it? Fantasy terrain, the amazing like medieval village stuff. It's incredible stuff, and I'm almost there. I'll tell you on the other side. Um, what do we got here? Squats and into the dark terrain. How much they tie into Necromunda? Nah, we'll do that'll be a whole episode. Um, and we're out. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I threw that out there, and I was like, oh, we could do that as a rapid fire at the end. So there we are. Well, any final thoughts before we close out?
Nope. Just I'm gonna enjoy watching this Zone Mortalis force come together. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm fully content with enabling it as well as I can.
Oh man. Well, I'm gonna keep my make a wish day going. We're gonna say goodbye here. I'm gonna go unbox a base six and start drooling over STLs apparently of boarding shields. So Eric, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and an all around good person. Goodbye, everybody.